What made her this way? What is the attraction? What keeps us fascinated? This is the story of Angela Anaconda. Again.
Say, look at this. I've been cleaning out my nest, and I found an old book of my poetry.
It's so nice to be insane. No one asks you to explain. Radio by Angie, baby, you're the special rain.
In 1830, Tanqueray London-style gin was released to the public. It is still on shelves today as a top-shelf booze, meaning that the British must have thought this was the greatest thing since lighting the White House on fire in 1814. This drink was also around in 1994 because that's how calendars work. In 94, Tanqueray Gin wanted to give more dads liver poisoning than ever, so they introduced Mr. Jenkins, who is technically qualified as a spokes character, and not a spokesman, but not quite a mascot either, because it was only a picture of a face on a real guy with an illustrated body and environment. This ad was only found in prints and ended in 99. But that didn't matter because two ladies from the NYC, Joanna Ferrone and Sue Rose, thought this advertising was the greatest thing since Gary Glitter. The duo's first notable credit was in 1985, when the duo created the character of Fido Dido, or as the kids call him, Synth Cool. Dido was originally drawn on a napkin, but eventually was merchandised around the NYC. That's short for New York City, if you're an ancestor of the people who lit the White House on fire. New York City in the 1980s was home to many unorthodox art movements. Most notably Keith Haring, the dancing rainbow stick figure guy. Surely you'd recognize that. Shit like this thrived in the NYC 80s art scene. If you ask me, this was an era where schizophrenia actually had some personality. Maybe it was the AIDS in everybody's blood, I don't know, I wasn't alive, but the arts back then weren't just rage bait nonsense. God damn, New York City, skyscrapers and everything. Only city in America where you can hear one of the Beatles screaming the N-word. Sign me and the rest of America up. Even if Fido Dido was a cartoon character amongst an era and decade most recognized for the practical arts, like, he fit right in. He ain't that different from, like, Versus Medici. Same vibe, and genital pain. The character was also included in a self-titled comic strip. And by 1988, the character was amusing enough to be licensed for 7-Up advertisements. Even though they already had a mascot at the time, Spot, who was discontinued in 97. Hell, I even talked about Spot's NES game in 2017.
Really nothing to say here. I mean, like, what you see is what you get.
Wow, really changed the game with that review. I can understand what you just said. But regardless, this duo had now become connected to drink marketing. But around 96, the duo behind Fido Dido was approached by Nickelodeon to produce shorts for an upcoming animated anthology sketch series, Kamala Kablam. You gotta understand, this was like 96 by release date. This was roughly year 5 of Nicktoons. This was long before the days of Drowning Katy Perry and Reptar's Cum. In 95-ish, hot damn, Nickelodeon were climbing up the Lord's ladder, giving Disney a run for their money, so they needed as many cartoons as possible. But this wasn't Netflix today. Animation was still pretty expensive back then. I can't imagine how difficult making a cartoon without GoAnimate would be. So they weren't just gonna greenlight anything, but they also needed to see what resonated with audiences at the end of the millennium. What does Disney have? 101 Dalmatians? Well, what if we have one dog that's also a cat? Yeah, suck my yarmulke, Walt Disney, you anti-Semitic piece of shit. Yeah, that's right, we tolerate Jews in our organization like Dan Schneider. Oh, by the way, Good Burger 2 released on the 60th anniversary of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. What are they hiding? Did they make Good Burger 2 to distract us from what they did to Kennedy that day? They gotta be hiding more to us than Dan Schneider. Perhaps all that is meant to be said in the past tense, as in all that childhood fucking trauma to the children they molested. Kablam was very open to just throwing anything age-appropriate at the wall, and it was very appropriately titled as a nonsense onomatopoeia. If you were banned from watching MTV, this was not a bad secondary option, even if less edgy than its emo cousin Liquid Television. Kablam was hosted by the fictional duo of Henry and June, with original interstitial segments between the various shorts. The duo eventually getting their own focused TV special. The Henry and June segments were created by Mark Merrick, who went on to be the co-creator of the 2010 Mad animated series, which had a satire of Katy Perry being drowned in Reptar's cum. And that was about the closest thing my age demographic got to Kablam, so a good move on Cartoon Network's part. Kablam is no doubt a cult classic, and I say that because it's beloved, but it's not really synonymous with classic 90s Nickelodeon. Like, you're not gonna see Henry and June on epic 90s themed merchandise. Many regard its content as surprisingly versatile, and it gave all of Hollywood glimpses of economic potential. Which, yeah, looking at it from a business standpoint, it was clearly just a vehicle for proofs of concepts to make a fuckload of money, but from a creative standpoint, it was highly unorthodox compared to anything before or after, and especially after. Hell, it was originally pitched as a spin-off of Nickelodeon's All That, aka Saturday Night Live for kids banned from watching it. And even if Kablam isn't a spin-off of that, it is definitely a spiritual successor beyond its objective variety formula. I mean, like, what did All That spawn? The duo of Kenan and Kel, whether it be their self-titled sitcom, or Good Burger, The Amanda Show, The Nick Cannon Show, the white version of Kenan and Kel, which subsequently spawned the iCarly/Victorious Cinematic Universe, which subsequently spawned Fred the Show and Incredible Crew, and the list of children's TV history just goes on and on and on. Another likely reason for Kablam's cult status is that Kablam has since entered copyright hell. Nickelodeon doesn't own every showcased IP, no matter how minimally utilized and obscure some of the IPs are, which ironically only benefited its cult status. You gotta get this shit on bootleg DVDs and underground swap meets and whatnot. Yeah, it turns out legally this show was also comically 90s in a way that it wasn't meant for a complete series box set and to be on streaming. Like a lot of variety shows in general, the full series unedited has never been commercially and legally available, so no doubt you gotta settle for second best.
Hey, Kablamsters, get up and get down.
Get down!
That didn't stop some releases here and there, like select episodes on Paramount Plus at a point, and a Tombstone Pizza promotional tape, but it's not a show you can binge easily. Like, guys, you'd have to use NordVPN and ExpressVPN while drinking Soylent to track it all down. It'd be easier to not burn your mouth on Tombstone Pizza than to binge Kablam legally. But any legal nightmares didn't diminish its street cred in pop culture, but street cred in pop culture doesn't mean it gets vintage neck tees. You don't see it on Old Navy cookie cutter radically 90s merchandise. Yeah, ladies, I'm pulling up to the crib with the Mountain Dew logo.jpg tee. So compared to everything else it was surrounded by on its fellow network, it's not synonymous with the era, but Henry and June will never be forgotten. But since there wasn't a SpongeBob SquarePants to take up 80% of the fucking schedule, Nickelodeon was actually open to unorthodox show concepts and presentation decisions. Like, you're telling me this sponge lives in a pineapple under a sea and takes pride in his $6.55 an hour fast food job? But Fido Dido being an icon to a niche demographic of people, it's not surprising the duo was consulted for contributions for the upcoming Kablam series. Some Kablam shorts became series of shorts, and that includes Angela Anaconda, but at a minuscule 2. And 2 pilots might seem generous. I mean, like, that's already more than most shows get. But compared to the rest of the stuff that got more than one short, yeah, this was bad even by experimental Kablam standards. As far as I know, the only other 2-part Kablam segments include The Brothers Tiki and The Adventures of Patchhead. But the most recurring Kablam segments, aka not this Jeffrey Dahmer shit, included Action League Now, Life with Loopy, Prometheus and Bob, Sniz and Fondue, and The Offbeats. Action League Now was an absurd superhero parody starring comically cheap action figures and was obviously extremely cheap to produce.
My stomach!
My head!
Nickelodeon Syphil and Ollie, if you will.
You could keep magnets in the trunk of my car.
Syphil said that I could.
What? You ass!
And it did get a full compilation series, with the segments being compiled into roughly half-hour full episodes. So due to the sheer quantity from low budget, it technically became a full show, but only through compilation. And a live-action Prometheus and Bob movie was apparently announced at some point, but was eventually scrapped. But the 2010 Gulliver's Travels adaptation starring Jack Black, for some reason, reused a bunch of the script, allegedly. And no wonder the movie bombed. It's an obscure Nick series of shorts mixed with a public domain property. I didn't bother watching it, but it just looks like a stupid-ass exploitative modernization of the public domain, while being completely indistinguishable from any other PG comedy of the era, like Zookeeper, or the Shaggy Dog remake, or Mr. Popper's Penguins. Okay, take that with a grain of salt, Mr. Popper's Penguins, the movie nation. I haven't seen it in like 14 years. So in the end, outside of a canceled movie that was repurposed, Henry and June's one spin-off TV special, and a compilation series, Nick really wasn't interested in adapting any of the Kablam content for a full series. Angela Anaconda was, without a doubt and without exaggeration, one of the worst shorts on Kablam. Take that with a grain of salt. That could be its own video, but it was one of the worst ones, no doubt. But Angie Baby got the last laugh with the full series on Fox Family in 1999.
Excusez-moi?
It is likely that the character of Angela Anaconda was presumably abandoned until Fox took interest towards the end of the 90s. Maybe it failed to get picked up for multiple years, I don't know. But in the meantime, after Kablam, but before the full Angela Anaconda series, co-creator Sue Rose was busy on Disney's Pepper Ann, which she created and got 5 seasons out of, which is more than the standard 3 at least, so that's definitely something. And much like the two Angela shorts, it was a female-led slice-of-life show. Even if Rose voiced Angela and was a secondary creator, the actual character of Angela was more of a child self-insert of Joanna Ferrone. So it's very much possible that the protagonist of Pepper Ann was a reworking of Angela Anaconda without Ferrone's childhood edge. Maybe Ann actually stands for Angela. But even if she wasn't, female-led slice of life was definitely a niche that Rose was interested in. Yeah, the 90s were all about slice-of-life cartoons when they weren't being edgy. So in a nutshell, there was a ton of cult classic schizo shit, but we just had to get a full show of the schizo shit that nobody gave a rat's ass about. Which is criminal because these two Mr. Jenkins Kablam shorts suck. And by the way, Mr. Jenkins kinda looks like the self-insert of Jim Jenkins from Hoop Dogs, better known as the greatest Christian show of all time.
I don't know. What do you want to do?
Hey, I know. Let's go sin. I like
Reoccurring Kablam segment, and my personal favorite, Life with Loopy, has some vague similarities with an absurdist edge, flat characters, and a questionable girl protagonist, but no, we just had to get the inferior option for a schizo show with a weird girl lead. Okay, well technically the main character of Life with Loopy is her brother Larry, who narrates his testimony of his sister's absurd actions. But let's be real, you're there for the girl that got no valentines in kindergarten. But hey, it's still technically the 90s, networks are still open to schizo shit. And after all, we all need a distraction from the Clinton-Lewinsky affair. MTV was still king, we gotta copy him a little bit. Fox was clearly open to the concept of the child between Fido Dido and Pepper Ann. But what value did Fox see in these two Kablam test pilots of sorts? These two shorts would primarily establish the dynamic between the protagonist and her rival, as well as her best friend slash schoolgirl's love interest, introducing 4 of the main characters between the two 10-minute total. Angela Anaconda, the imaginative troublemaker who's in love with the campus kook, Johnny Abadi. You can tell he's stupid because he has blue hair and pronouns. Nanette Manoir, an arrogant popular girl of French descent. Hey, at least she's not British, lighting the White House on fire. And the gang's teacher, Mrs. Brinks, who favors Nanette.
to today's story.
starring me. And not starring Nanette Manoir.
But she's the main character. It also stars her. You're the protagonist, but it still stars her. The shorts also get the basics of the art style down when collaging illustrations in reality with black and white palettes, or as white people who went to college say, grayscale palettes. The lack of alteration of the photographs for consistent facial expression movement is the particularly unsettling part. This is a commendable experiment for psychological horror, but this is not David Lynch trickery. This is a slice-of-life kids show. Is this fucking Archie Comics or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb? It is contextually inappropriate regardless. All the shadowing was clearly sourced from different photographs, so there's no way to remove it if we need something to be visible. The faces aren't very manipulatable, and when making a Nicktoon for children, yeah, not a good move. The necks are so disproportionate. I get it's supposed to be a comical disproportion, but it's like some fucking Reagan from The Exorcist backbending shit. But I don't think the misplaced ambition of the style was the biggest flaw with the show. It was Angela's writing. Angela Anaconda herself is genuinely one of the most poorly written characters in fiction. The show would not be as memorably offensive as it is if there was any sort of realism to Angela's character. Angela unintentionally comes off as a child with severe emotional problems. I get what Joanna was trying to write, like a weird girl slash troublemaker kinda, but the archetype was completely butchered. The way the character is written does not help its unintentionally disturbing nature. That flaw extends to the writing. Angela, I think, is supposed to be like a lesser evil amongst a group of kids because kids can be cruel to each other. Nanette is a realistic enough approach to the meanest girl in the 3rd grade, but Angela is the underdog we're supposed to be rooting for. Angela never stops complaining about how Nanette is a bad person. Like, obviously you're gonna have to establish that the duo doesn't get along, but Angela's non-stop mentioning of Nanette appears unintentionally dangerously obsessive. Another aspect of the writing is that the dialogue's common attributes include comically repeating information.
It's 10 minutes before 10 minutes of 8. And unless a chipmunk shorts out the school bell again, my school starts at 10 minutes of 8. Thinks of a good one. A pet wash for pets. Me and like a moon rock? All the way from the moon?
That's my hunch.
I'll do a project about rainforest food from the rainforest.
You know, Angie, I bet your creators remember the New York buildings from New York. And this also applies to all the kids referring to each other by their full names, which, yeah, that's how kids talk.
I'd like to help you, Angela Anaconda, but I kind of had my eye on that quarter-pound chocolate bar.
But that's 12 weeks old, Gina Lash. How about you give me your stars and I buy you a brand new fresh chocolate bar after...
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
You get like one, maybe 2 full-name characters. They might call him Charlie Brown, but Chuck doesn't call the rest of the crew Patricia Rightheart, Lucille Van Pelt, Franklin Armstrong, because that would just be a fucking mouthful. Constantly being referred to as Angela Anaconda does not have a nice ring to it. You know, I get it. Anne. But what the fuck was wrong with her being nicknamed Angie or something by your friends in universe? Especially if it happens in every scene. Like, do you think the audience is that stupid? Do we have to constantly reintroduce the cast? I don't think it's trying to, but that's how it comes off. I assume it's supposed to be a comical explanation of basic concepts, but it gets really annoying quickly. And obnoxiously repetitive dialogue is the last thing a character with Angela's annoying voice and unpleasant look needed.
He doesn't like except me. On account of today, we are playing Mrs. Brinks' Unscramble the Scrambled Flashcard Sentence Game.
Dude, she sounds like the fucking girl version of me. Angela's non-stop bitching about Nanette is borderline Chris Chan and Michael Snyder, and what I mean by that is that Angela complaining about Nanette is just shoved into like every scene the main antagonist is shoved into. Is the show so creatively bankrupt that they have to spend so much time of the episode establishing basics? Like, there's always gotta be a monologue about how much of a bitch Nanette is, even though it's already been established 400 goddamn times already. Okay, Nanette is insufferable. Nanette is gonna slit her wrists and jump into the pool at her 17th birthday party. We get it. Can you shut the fuck up and move on already? Like, once an episode would be fine to introduce the antagonist for someone who's never seen it before, because it's an episodic show, but why reestablish this like every 2 goddamn minutes? But no, Angela has to be firing insults left and right whether she's in the room in universe or not. But the worst part is that similar to Nickelodeon's Doug, Angie's fantasies of our child protagonist are common in storylines. Angie's fantasies often involve Nanette or any relevant antagonist being injured or hurt or something. She doesn't explicitly say, "I think Nanette should fucking die in a fire." But the fantasies often utilize unnecessarily violent concepts. The presentation isn't violent, but I thought this was a slice of life show. When you factor in the concept that this is supposed to be a real world setting with realistic images, but also presented oddly, it just rubs you oddly. Let's look at some of Angie's fantasies. Throughout the 2 pilot shorts, she pours bug juice all over Nanette. No, she literally says bug juice.
This fresh-made bug juice will cool you.
Okay, she pours a pitcher of like pink lemonade or something all over Nanette and attracts a bunch of bugs and lets her fall to her death. She also suction cups Nanette and Johnny to a jet ski and drags them around across the ocean, and also gives Nanette a life-threatening allergic reaction. In the Hanukkah special, she decapitates Nanette's entire family and hangs their heads on a fucking menorah. In the episode The Substitute, she has a fantasy about ordering people she doesn't like at a fucking restaurant.
I'll have the crepe Nanette with a side of mashed Derrick and some macaroni and cheese.
Like most kids, even if not the most responsible, don't fantasize about wanting to eat children. But no, this isn't a dark comedy. How the fuck am I supposed to laugh at this? In the same episode, there's also a fantasy involving Nanette and Mrs. Brinks falling to their death and drowning. But this is just a part of the format. This is just another day. Every episode has a hypothetical death of a classmate or family member or any possible antagonist.
And it counts! This is a cartoon film, and it has more kills than horror movies.
Like they're just some fucking average Joe because this is a slice of life show. She treats everybody like they sex traffic orangutans or something. But nope, someone she might live with or goes to school with just dies of a fucking vehicular heat stroke in every episode. They're fantasies of torture, not imagination sequences from a child. This isn't stealing Nanette's rainbow pencil or even putting a thumbtack on her chair. It's non-stop fantasies of wishing death. And yeah, you might not notice this as a kid, but if you watch enough of it as an adult, without exaggeration, Angela comes off as a threat to herself and others. Now, the obvious thing to poke fun at is the misplaced style of animation, but no, she genuinely has attributes of a serial killer. This is not like the Mr. Bucket commercial from the 80s where it's just your mind ruining it.
That's right, I'm Mr. Bucket. I'm Mr. Bucket. Toss your balls in my top. I'm Mr. Bucket. Out of my mouth I will pop.
Which isn't the point of the show, which is why it's bad. I also don't like Angela's voice on top of her obnoxious dialogue.
If you insist, I will tell her.
Although the show is presumably set in the present of 1999, Angela makes it seem like it's 1899 and this third grader has a smoking problem.
Wait to get to school on account of I can't wait to show everyone my new New England coat that they have never seen. Her name is Sue Rose. Sue has had a lot to do with my success in a lot of different ways. She's the best. On account of without her, I wouldn't be able to even speak.
As I said, she was voiced by co-creator Sue Rose, who was born in 1954, and the character debuted in 96, meaning that she started playing the character when she was 42. She was a little too old for the part of a child with a high-pitched voice, much like JoJo Siwa.
I got it! Oh no!
Get off the screen, you fucking whore! So on top of misplaced animation, bad child character writing, even the voice of the protagonist is unintentionally disturbing. So if you watch enough episodes, she starts to appear like a complete fucking monster. Like, it is school lunchtime for the school class. I hope there's ravioli with chunks of people in it. Oh, hot ham and cheese in a bag with condensation that is condensed? Well, time to light something on fire. This child needs to be locked up so she doesn't fucking leak Kanye's new album. When did Lucy, the mean girl from Peanuts, ever think about killing Charlie Brown? Never, because most kids don't act like that. Okay, well, the Peanuts dialogue being unrealistic is kind of a part of the joke, but regardless, at the end of the day, it still has the mentality of kids often being inconsiderate towards their peers. I don't know if any of y'all read Junie B. Jones growing up, but it was this book series about a punk-ass tomboy running from 92 to 2012. In the first grade sequel series, there was a girl in the class she didn't like named May Murky, who is kind of like Nanette. She's the meanest girl in the first grade, you know. Junie, often referring to, Juniper Beatrice Jones, often referring to May Murky as a tattletale. And she really does not get along with this girl, even to the point where it's referenced in the title of the Christmas book, which coincidentally has the same plot as Angela Anaconda's Christmas special of being a Secret Santa gift swap going haywire. In Junie, there was also a mean boy antagonist referred to as Meanie Jim. And look, I haven't read any of these books in like 13 years due to alcohol-induced brain damage, but I'm pretty sure at no point does Junie even think about wishing death on Tattletale May and Meanie Jim. If that happened, that would be on like every top 10 darkest moments on shitty top 10 channels in 2015. Like, I'm not saying kids are stupid, but death can be a tricky subject, and it's not something they're gonna want or think about, given that often, they're not gonna understand it immediately. Which raises the question, why is this child constantly fantasizing about it? The full series would be more fully developed, no shit, Sherlock. And speaking of which, the full show easily has one of the worst theme songs of all time.
My name is Angela, hey hello, welcome to my very own show.
I get it's supposed to be bad on purpose, it's a child performing at a talent show like the FNAF Kid in Lego Batman shorts. I get the exact slice of childhood they're trying to portray. It's supposed to be a talent show fuck-up. Five Nights at Freddy's. But it's sung in Angela's voice, which I can't sing to begin with, and it's supposed to be bad on purpose, so it's so nasally.
My name is Angela. I'll introduce my friends to you.
Now, this is likely referring to the context of the episodes where common information is constantly rehashed for comedic effect. But this is a theme song. Why should you be referencing the episodes regarding information far more fit for an introductory? And, a theme song is supposed to also be an introductory via jingle? The only character that is actually described is Nanette. Because Angela is so horribly Flanderized compared to her pilot iteration, she just never shuts the fuck up about Nanette. In the full show, the notably inappropriate style would be more refined, but still not fit for this type of show at all. Instead of any traditional 2D animation software common for the era, it was animated on Elastic Reality, which was a common special effects software of the late 90s. But it was not animated on an animation software, but they did it anyway. This is the modern-day equivalent of animating in After Effects and not Adobe Animate, just like Daft Pina's Saturdays Off. Yeah, you can technically animate in After Effects, but why would you use it over Adobe Animate? The animation here isn't super fluid, but it doesn't really need to be, but the lack of fluidity is just another thing that makes it more inappropriate. It technically qualifies as 2.5D because 2D character models feature some third-dimensional photographs as well as third-dimensional environments. Thankfully here, the most notable difference with the characters' facial features is the increased flexibility, often being able to turn themselves around for more interesting framing when the framing demands such. It is an undeniable improvement, but for the 100th time, it's still contextually inappropriate. If you look at some of the behind-the-scenes material, look at the storyboards. It's not resemblant of the final product at all. And given that this was animated in a special effects software, it's likely that they just overly relied on the computer. They just went into it, which is not a good creative plan. The plot structure from the Kablam shorts would also be retained, school day adventures intertwined with fantasies. The main ensemble would also be expanded to introduce 2 extra friends.
Oh my god, it's Weezer!
Gina Lash, Angela's best friend, the voice of reason, who's also a fucking fat ass, and Gordy Reinhardt, the punching bag who's in love with Gina. Adding Gina was actually a pretty good move to separate the best friend from the love interest of our main protagonist in the ensemble's dynamic. Although Gordy's usage is very inconsistent. Sometimes he's the fourth friend, but sometimes he's also not very relevant. Allegedly, he was kind of a divisive character to use by the writers. Angela's home life is also established, and she lives with her mother Geneva and father Bill, and also has two older twin jock brothers, Mark and Derek, as well as a younger sister, Baby Lulu. Baby Lulu is the scariest fucking character in the whole show. Is this an allegory for how the Antichrist is already living amongst us? Yeah, probably. And this might seem like a nitpick, but none of the other Anacondas have Angela's accent.
It all began when King ate my homework.
Angela, you expect me to believe a story that begins with "the dog ate your homework"?
And I wouldn't have noticed that if Angela's voice wasn't so fucking annoying. Angela's home life was a particularly underdeveloped aspect of the world building. The episodes are only 11 minutes, and yes, I know it's supposed to prioritize school day adventures the majority of the time. But despite this family living under the same roof, they don't get a ton of scenes together, even if it's not the point. You know, these are day in the lives, but we don't really get to see the day outside of school, but it's hinted to, and it's pretty unexplored, all things considered. It's implied that she doesn't like her dumb jock twin brothers, but I have no evidence to suggest a simple sibling quarrel, so I'm going to assume this is just a broken home. Bill did not have sexual relations with that woman. My mom once told me, give the protagonist siblings, but don't use them. I
had to wear my brother's underwear, which I don't care, because today is our class picnic.
A brother was mentioned in the first pilot, so the team actually decided to expand upon this one line of dialogue. And, you know, Baby Lulu is a baby. Babies don't do anything. Oh, she also has a dog that doesn't do anything because he's a dog. Nanette would also be expanded to have her own mean girl posse as an antagonist group, including her two dick riders, or I guess pussy riders in this context, January Cole and Carlene Trainer. There will also be some additional classmates that sometimes would have a role in stories, including Candy May, the dumb girl, it's only fair, Josephine Praline, the church girl, but I doubt the network would let them say church. So I'll just say spiritual consultant Angela hollers at when she contemplates her own morality, and Jimmy Jamal, who is straight gangsta Mac. I mean, like, look, he plays a Game Boy in the background sometimes, like, he's cool as shit. The main ensemble's respective families will also appear sometimes, Johnny Abadi's Uncle Nicky getting the most focus, often creating conflicts as an irresponsible adult. Angela might also have a cliche dumbass dad, but Angela's friend's dumbass uncle is the most prominent irresponsible adult. He's the real dumbass father of the show. If there's one thing a niche demographic of people would absolutely recognize the show for, it would be its promotional short for Digimon the movie. As the title suggests, Digimon was the irate gamer of Pokemania. And what I mean by that was when Pokemon was in its prime, when it was new outside of Japan in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was a huge fucking deal if you weren't alive then. I wasn't alive for it personally, but I do have some 2000s Pokemon nostalgia.
What do you like to play?
Pokemon!
Pokemon!
And it was no doubt the generation before me's Five Nights at Freddy's. Keep in mind, it was international, so it was no doubt a bigger deal than Bill Clinton. Not even Pokemon Go to the polls in 2016 could top Pokemon in 98-ish. So obviously, with Pokemon up the ass, we were getting Pokemon rip-offs up the ass. But Digimon did well enough as a more futuristic spin on the concept of possessable pocket monsters. Much like the irate gamer, people knew it was a ripoff, but plenty didn't care, and Digimon is still around today, even if far past its prime, just like the thing it was ripping off. So when it came time for Tiger, Pokemon, walkie-talkies, there was also Digimon, walkie-talkies, And when Pokemon the movie dropped in 98, there just had to be a Digimon the movie in 2000. Except Digimon the movie featured a theatrical Angela Anaconda short that was also found on home media releases. According to fan recollection, like, the Angela Anaconda short isn't even a bonus feature on the movie DVD, it's like flat out part of the movie. Like the home media distributors didn't give a fuck and just placed it before. The short consists of Anaconda's cast rushing to see Digimon the movie, and Angela fantasizing about utilizing the powers common in the fictional universe. And wow, Angela pretending to be an animal? Oh, finally, something actually childish. The short consists of a slightly tweaked animation and a couple dubbed lines from the episode Good Seats. And in the actual episode, it reuses animation from, instead of Digimon, they're rushing to get Good Seats from Interstellar Giant vs. Mechanic. And coincidentally, in the episode, the crew is also seen playing a Pokemon stand-in, likely satirizing what was cool with the kids as it was airing.
Wait, Kid Colossus is the ultimate champion. You kids are with your trading cards.
Sadly, the kids weren't cool with Bill Clinton, but Bill Clinton was cool with kids. Hey, if you got molested by Stephen Hawking on that island, that's on you. That's fucking Stephen Hawking. Yeah, I guess it was a convenient reuse, with reusing a pre-existing Pokemon allegory and its in-universe movie for a Pokemon ripoff advertising piece. Did it save time? Yes, but the laziness also just makes a crappy short even worse. This short would also be crucial in the perception around Angela Anaconda being a complete sociopath, due to a viral 4chan thread from June of 2018 posted by an anonymous user, citing that the short was crucial for his parents divorcing. Let's read it.
It's Fat Albert, and I didn't know at the time that my parents' relationship was rocky, and I begged to go see Digimon the movie, and my parents agreed, but I don't realize it's for them to spend some time together as well. So we go to the theater, and I'm excited about the Digimon flick, and we can even afford popcorn and drinks. My parents look happy, but then the Angela Anaconda short comes on, and my parents don't speak very good English, and my little boy mind just can't comprehend all the fuck going on. And my parents are utterly confused by this Canadian fuck running around in a Digimon suit, and I start crying, and they pull me out of the theater, and Mom and Dad start blaming each other for going to the wrong film. And Dad throws away the popcorn Mom wanted. Lots of arguing, and I'm still crying, and we get out to the parking lot and drive off in a rush, and we get into an accident in the parking lot, and then Dad moves out a month later. That fucking bitch of a whore, Angela Anaconda, ruined my life.
Now, none of this is proven, but it's pretty damn funny. But in the Angela Anaconda short, Digimon is constantly mentioned. So if we really want to nitpick the story, we could say it was like a really misleading opening. But it's a lot like the whole Linkara Dead Muppet gangbangs. Like, yeah, it's not provable, but it's suspiciously on brand and still hilarious. Angela Anaconda ended after 3 seasons in 2001, and there's a simple reason as to why. The subsidiary of the Fox Corporation, Fox Family, was bought by Disney and rebranded to a subsidiary of ABC under ABC Family. And of course, ABC is a brand Disney already had control of. This, of course, eventually led to Disney purchasing the 20th Century Fox subsidiary, which is what most people think of when they hear Disney buying Fox. But the Fox Corporation's trades with Disney's began far earlier than 2019. And Disney, now owning the network that made it, had no interest in continuing Angela Anaconda. Most likely because it was a surrealist MTV competitor, whether intentional or not, and MTV's teenage brand was a new concept at the time. And even if it is a PG show, it was likely that it had some PG-13 viewers, given its mostly absurd art direction not targeting younger viewers. A common assumption as to why it was cancelled by Disney. But this, of course, was just the green lighting network. This does not mean that Disney ever owned Angela Anaconda. The show and IP was owned by the Sense Corporation, which was eventually rebranded to Cookie Jar, and Cookie Jar was acquired by DHX, which has since rebranded to Wild Brain. Wild Brain makes Caillou, so that's it, Wild Brain, you are grounded. After Angie's cancellation, Sue Rose would continue to write and create other series, including creating the girly girl tween drama The Sleepover Club, the Nick sitcom Unfabulous, and writing on Kuku Harajuku, the animated tween drama, and Doc McStuffins, the Disney Junior series.
And fuck Cock McDumbshit as well. She should be arrested for impersonating a doctor.
Joanna Ferrone prioritized being an author, essentially leaving writing for television for publishing. She embraced her personal view of viewing herself as a writer more than anything, and once her show in collaboration with her TV friend got canned, the duo had essentially moved on from the character in general. But there was one fan who was hell-bent on getting the show revived. YouTuber Amazon Kane, who made an extensive amount of Angela Anaconda analysis, reaction, and revisionist videos between 2018 to 2023. She is still active occasionally today, but clearly ran out of Angela Anaconda analysis topics to commentate on. But she was able to get ultra-specific information out about the show from interviewing 3 of its most crucial contributors: Joanna Ferrone herself, Ed Chi, an animation prop designer, and Ruby Smith Merowitz, the voice of Nanette Manoir. And she would attempt to get a revival off the ground. It initially started with reading off written scripts, some of which were revisions of concepts for the original series within a combination of original storylines, and a hypothetical intro sequence was also completed, animated by Anthony Ward, aka Ant CGI, with Kane's heavy assistance and original prop designer Ed Chi returning, as well as some others, but a whole team was assembled for this intro recreation, presenting rigged animation as opposed to animating and special effects software, and most drastically presented the characters in color, since the grayscale imagery was such a common criticism. Although it is very limited color of these skin tones, but it is still color. But all this animation did was present the possibilities of more fluid movement with a different choice of technology, and some character design alterations throughout a hypothetical intro sequence utilizing an instrumental rendition of the theme song melody, not really showing any other elements to improve upon its predecessor. But there was one big flaw in getting a revival off the ground.
Hey guys, I got some bad news for you. I did hear back from Wild Brain, and they're not interested in rebooting Angela Anaconda, and they're not interested in giving up the rights. So, as of right now, the reboot isn't happening.
And that was the lack of rights to utilize the Angela Anaconda property, whether it be through ownership or license. The expectancy of successfully acquiring the rights to use it as an independent party was an unrealistic expectation in of itself, despite the property's negative reception and obscurity. The copyright was a huge flaw in Kane's vision of being so hellbent on reviving the obscure and disliked IP. But for an Angela Anaconda reboot to be good, I think it has to improve on the two main things that it is in its core. Obviously, it's a lot more than that any show is, but it's a female-led slice-of-life show with absurdist imagery. Kane clearly had the determination of writing a female slice-of-life show, but not for the vision of unique absurdist imagery, which was likely why she was inspired to reinvent the show, not without being her own IP. And as far as I know, the move to just make the reboot a legally binding Angela Anaconda-inspired show was never taken. But I do think if Kane paired with the correct absurdist visionary, an absolute spiritual successor that is unique in its own right may be doable. Which is something for somebody. Kane at 6K subscribers is no doubt a cult classic within the Angela Anaconda fandom. Hell, there probably wouldn't even be an Angela Anaconda fandom without her countless revisionist pieces. If it was ran by the person who has extensively consumed and acknowledged the common criticisms of the show show and will defend it more than any other person on the planet, then production-wise, getting it made independently would still be a hellhole in of itself, but for copyright reasons, it just couldn't be Angela Anaconda. If potentially frightening imagery would continue to be a chosen route for the art direction, I think an adult cartoon that's not horribly edgy would be a good option. Like King of the Hill is no doubt an adult cartoon, but there's nothing edgier than Mike Judge's predecessor, Beavis and Butthead.
Well, let's go tell Bobby he's fat.
Why not just have it be an adult cartoon where the kids swear because kids swear a lot, and you can't have kids swearing in a kid's show, but that doesn't matter because it's not a kid's show even if it stars kids' day-to-day adventures. Or hell, on the contrary, even just making it a flat-out dark comedy about a deranged sociopath girl in an elementary school could also work by intentionally doing what many, including myself, found the original show to consist of unintentionally. Absurdist imagery is integral to the property. There was an artist duo that wanted to do something unique, no matter how contextually inappropriate. Targeting adults that could actually appreciate it could be a huge advantage. But due to the lack of public interest for a revival and Wild Brain's legal unwillingness to hand over the rights, it's likely never happening. But Kane did try to make her own IP, which wasn't an Angela Anaconda's spiritual successor, so naturally it didn't really get the attention of her fan base. Titled Katharina the Supervillain, which spawned a 2-minute short and a trailer within the finished product department. The short really only showcasing a character dynamic and not really a typical storyline, no matter how condensed a compromise to minimal resources. I don't believe there was actually ever like a full-length storyline pilot in development hell. It's been over 6 years since the trailer released, and the social media hasn't been active since 23, so it was presumably cancelled. And I think utilizing minimal resources to make a trailer for a series or a test pilot as opposed to a short story with the characters with a distinct beginning, middle, and end that could showcase the formatting structure, which of course could be expanded upon a later date, was a bad move. Kind of just skipping a phase of proof of concept. Just like the Angela revival, it didn't really go anywhere because from the creator of countless Angela Anaconda revisionist essays wasn't credible enough. And it didn't really involve absurdist imagery or real-world day-to-day adventures, so I don't think it really got attention from the Angela Anaconda fanbase the creator was a prominent name in. It wasn't a professional attempt by a credible name or studio, but it was a devotion, no matter how misguided, to not mention when bringing up the show's history, if not legacy. So yeah, it's a show that could potentially be worth your time, but I don't think anyone's going to deny that it was misguided. But said misguidance can be appreciable. There are things I appreciate about it, but I can't call it good by any means. It's fucking insufferable at times, but it is misguided, and it is amusingly misguided. It actually reminds me on the Nutsack on the basis that there are some surprising redeeming qualities about it, but you have to dig into the show so heavily to find them that it's almost not worth watching, even if this is nowhere near as flawed as the Nutsack, and its biggest flaw was misguidance, no doubt.
And you, baby,